Now, building e-commerce websites require resources. And resources means, in most cases, money, right? So, let's look at some of the key things to think about when thinking on e-commerce budgets. First one, what I call development journey. Now, I'm a lot into journeys because I believe that things connect with each other very much. So, in the beginning, when you start to think about what you need to do, is actually defining what is exactly that you're trying to do and why. Okay? So, when developing an e-commerce website, whether that's from scratch or you are redesigning a current one, you've got to identify what and why you're doing it. And this is not just for the purpose of your business plan. It's actually to inform everyone in the team what it is that you're trying to do. And then, as a result of this, you move into the next stage where you actually design your specification plan. So you write down what is exactly we're aiming to do with it. Okay? So you're being very critical about what we expect to design. Then the next stage is actually designing it. So you get people together, designers, developers, to actually do their own bit. And then later on, all that design you put together, and then you build and then you construct that e-commerce website or the website that has been rebuilt. An important element that we normally spend a lot of time trying to design tests for the users that will check our e-commerce websites. Now, normally we call that pre-flight test, okay, just to make sure that there are all sorts of things we looked at. So what we do, we take groups of people from different backgrounds, we sit them with computers, and we don't do anything, we just say to them, okay, sit down and play around with this website, okay? And what we do, we record on everything that they do with the website. Every time they click something, add to the product, to the basket, check out, all sorts of things. We really look just to see what do they do. And then based on those, we start to pick up on areas that maybe they made a lot of sense to us, but very little to the user. And the only problem when you build things and you spend so much time on them, right? You start to become part of that development. And therefore, to you, it just becomes a normal thing. You don't see what's missing. But when you get people with fresh looks, right, to actually come and check things, that's when you start to say, okay, well, I can see what's happening now. But because you tend to spend lots of time in a piece of work, then it just becomes a normal thing to you. Okay? You get used to seeing that piece of work, and to you, it's just a perfect one. When in reality, maybe it's not there yet. And the good case is probably for your assignments when you submit things and you're like, yeah, that's going to be a good one, but you haven't asked anyone to look at it, okay? And you might have actually left things out that are quite important, okay? So, then after that, this testing process informs the build, informs the design and the specification plan, and then things are changed, and then there's the launch in the marketplace. Okay, so that's pretty much a process that happens. And trust me, lots of companies spend lots of money in testing. Especially those companies who build really insightful e-commerce websites. And we're talking about Paul Smith, Virgin Brands, ECB Cricket UK, all sorts of large websites. That's what they do. And I was part of some of those projects in the past. And trust me, it took us sometimes 2 to 3 weeks to put the plan together for the testing. And then 3-4 weeks to actually test it. And another 2-3 weeks to integrate the feedback and comment we receive from people into the e-commerce website before we launched it. And in most cases, even after we launched it, we still have people who came back to us and said, I'm not sure about this form, I'm not sure about that form, I'm not sure about this. Or sometimes a client that comes back to us and says, I'm not sure about all of these points, right? And that's why testing is never enough. You really got to spend a lot of time to try to understand that with different groups of people. We talked about A/B testing, and that's an element that really helps us a lot, because in the testing phase, because what we do, when we're not sure about different features or different elements, we start and test those features with different groups of people, right? This way, we'll see what's working the best, and then we decide based on the testing whether that's a landing page or whatever it is, and then based on the percentage of what people have clicked or done, and then we go with different types of landing pages or features in e-commerce websites, right? So in other words, that's an element that is built in within that pre-flight test process. So, task description. When it comes to e-commerce, let's look at some of the things that you need to do. Now, of course, there might be that you have already an e-commerce website, and therefore all you're trying to do is redesign, okay, that and then relaunch it again. But in most cases, there will be lots and lots of young entrepreneurs who kind of like want to build something from scratch. Now, this is the process that normally one would go through, okay? And the first one, before you start an e-commerce website, actually have a fantastic or unique business idea. And you actually have to write it down just to show what it is. Then you'll start to list products to sell and research them very well, okay? Now, e-commerce is probably really, really hard just because we've said last time, competition comes from everywhere. So you compete with everyone in the world today. And now that's really, really hard. Because in traditional business, you've got a store, and there might be 2 or 3 competitors of yours in a mile kind of radius or distance, but that's it. Okay? In the online, you've got thousands and thousands of people trying to sell exactly the same thing. So you're competing with for customers' attention. And that's really hard. To compete for that attention, what do? You do all sorts of marketing messages. You also invest lots in pay-per-click advertising, lots in affiliate marketing, lots in social media, right? To get that attention. So then you can sell something, right? So that becomes a real problem if you don't understand what it is that you're trying to do. Now that's the same case also if you're redesigning your online presence in e-commerce, right? You still need to know what it is you're trying to do. You see, research is an essential element in every case, really. You start to see their competitors, what do they do? Okay, what are the products they sell? How much they sell them for? How much you planning to sell your products? And where do you stand in the industry? Imagine now with all of these trends on price comparison, okay, sites, all these challenges in about buying cheapest price possible, right? Sorry, from eBay, Amazon and these ones. How can you survive? It's really hard. But understanding where you are is an essential element. And then you will start to identify your target audience and customer base that you want to sell to. Because that's when you start to learn who these people are. When we talked about customer journey, we talked about different elements that you need to understand about your customers. Create detailed business plan. Now, business plan sometimes is seen as a boring piece of work that you've got to do. But actually, business plan needs to be part of that development, part of that your business. It doesn't need to be something you've designed and then you're leaving out there somewhere, okay? But actually a piece of work that is with you throughout the process. And it's something that is with you for every change or modification you do to your website. So you grow with your business plan. You don't just write a business plan and leave it out, but it acts as part of you. It's like your wallet to the success in e-commerce world, in this case, right? You have it with you wherever you go. And everything you change, everything you modify, it needs to reflect in that one. Okay? Then after that, of course, you brainstorm for ideas for a name for your business. And then you start to identify what is that really reflects on the services and products you want to sell. And then obtain a computer, internet software, and the infrastructure put in place to be able to build that. And then you start to incorporate or register your company or your brand in Companies House, or other countries might have different institutions that do just that. Okay? So in a way, after that, you start to establish a process of looking after your e-commerce website, deciding where is your warehouse, how many products you're going to have, and how you're going to deal with the shipping process, supply chain, and the rest. And then you will also develop a realistic budget to keep the business going. So you really need to know what is that it will cost you to keep things going. And that's when business plan is really important. Because unless you write things down, you won't be aware of how much these things will cost you. But when you start to write things down, you start to give time that is required for every single task. And time is money. So by identifying tasks that you need to do, setting up time for every single task, then associating the cost to that task, then you start to see what is actually required and how much it will cost for the business. Now, project planning 1. One of the first things when it comes to identifying things that you need to do with e-commerce websites is actually to write things down, and again, as I said, start to make up an idea about how much that will cost you. Creative, technical integration, budgeting, testing, and promotion, that's all lots and lots of work that requires lots of time. Okay? So you need to have what? Your project manager with you, your developers, your designers, and then a bit of work from your director too. So all of that, okay, you write it down, but all of that, unless it's a part of this business planning and the budgeting, is going to be left out. So it's absolutely essential that we have that as a part of the cost for the e-commerce business plan. Then, of course, after that, you start to set up agreement on project goals that you want to do, whether that's with your customer or with your colleagues or with your executives at your company. But you need to make sure that you really have got something, a common goal that you're working towards. Okay? And one important element in this one here, which is very practical, is the fact that every time you agree on something, you've got to have a sign-up from the people you're working with. Or if you're working with a customer, with a client, right? Because the client changes their mind all the time. One day, they're in a good mood and they'll be happy with everything you tell them. Okay? Another day, they're just not feeling very good because the business is not going very well, and they will start to complain about everything from the day one, work that you've done. So it's really important to have sign-off process in every meetings, and then that is followed by different milestones as well. Okay? Then, after that, you start to assemble and brief the team of what is exactly it needs doing. Now, again, that's something that comes with a cost. Depending on the hours that you spend for this, that needs to be planned as well. Now, when it comes to putting the teams together, one of the key things that happen now in the web development agency is that that is worked out based on hours. So in most development agencies in London, they'll charge you based on hours. And they'll say to you, to build or redesign this e-commerce website or this landing page, it'll cost you, well, it will require us this many hours. And we charge you per hour like £500 or something like that. Okay? So we're looking at £10,000-15,000 or whatever it is. So we normally used to charge most of the clients based on hours, and of course that is a process that in most cases you don't get to kind of invoice the company for that or the client for that, because what you're doing now in most cases you're just brainstorming things with your friends or colleagues at work. But again, that's part of the cost that the company needs to look after. Brainstorming creative ideas, that's when your creative directors, your managers, your designers and developers come together and they spend hours and hours on reviewing requests from clients or reviewing a current website that needs redesigning. Now this is an important element. Before I finished my degree, I used to do lots of this. Okay? In fact, I used to do lots of work for a company in London, whether I was in Italy or in Kosovo or wherever I was. I would do lots of competitor analysis for them. So my job, and that was back in 2002, my job, it was just the biggest investment in e-commerce was coming just then. My job was to kind of go and do lots of competitor analysis. So what? Look at who competitors are of a specific company, see how well they're doing with their website in terms of keywords analysis, okay, link exchange with different websites, and ultimately how well they're doing engaging with their customers too. And I would review these things for days, right? And then as a result, I would provide reports that would go to the company in London, right? And based on these reports, they will decide which way to go. And we had cases where myself and my colleagues together, we would work on the reports even before we got to pitch for the work, right? In other words, we did competitor analysis for the company that we were going to pitch for, to get the work from them. And trust me, in most cases, we didn't even have PowerPoint presentations or keynote slides or anything like that. And we would still get the job. And we were more expensive than all other people that pitched for work. Why? Because we did our homework. So we really understood inside out who are the people that are competing for the same type of customers, and how are they doing? What's the good things that they're doing and the bad things as well. So in many cases, after we pitch, we just go back in the office and we receive a phone call from the people we pitched, from the client, and say, we chose to work with you guys. Even though you're more expensive than all other people that came to see us, but we see that you really understand our business. You see, you understand the nature of our e-commerce site that we're trying to build, or we're trying to redesign. And so, by doing that research, it was really handy. Not just to get an understanding about the client before you went to talk to him, which is always very useful, but actually it was so good that it got us projects too. Now some of these projects could were between £55,000 to £100,000, right? Depending on the work that these clients needed doing. Okay? So it's a really important element, important part. Now that takes time. It needs to be part of some budget within the company, but it's an essential bit. Analysis of business logic, selling, fulfillment, returns, and things like that. That also needs to be part of your budget and your plan as well. Now, project planning too. Some of the things to be thinking about, which of course require lots of time. We start with product modeling and database design. Now, in today's world, we use lots of kind of off-the-shelf type of packages for database, or sometimes for the design as well. But however, redesigning those or editing those, it requires lots of time. So it's absolutely essential that needs to be part of the budget for an e-commerce website. Sometimes that is depending on the size of the e-commerce site, that could become a really large database. It could be very, very costly. So that's an element that kind of helps us to understand how big our e-commerce website is going to be. Promotion and design and logic, of course, that's something to be part of the e-commerce budget plan. Design, decision support, okay, how are you going to support the customers, how are you going to improve things, and of course, how are you going to deal with customers that are going to complain. Writing of all text pages, that's another important element. You're going to write lots of things that go into your website, from your About Us page to the Contact Us page and everything else, including with terms and conditions and privacy. Now, of course, that does require time. Sometimes you can't do these things in-house. You've got to get some people who understand legal terms, okay, and can actually write contracts and things like that. Remember, in most cases when companies don't deliver and we complain, they say, oh, by the way, in our terms and conditions, we tell you clearly we don't do that. But who reads them? That's the problem. But that's where the company hides behind the terms and conditions, right? And in most cases, those terms and conditions are so long that nobody's even going to read the first line. Okay? But then that's where the company says, okay, whatever you want to do to us, we're behind terms and conditions. We tell you, here it is, you click them, you agreed with them, you know, sort yourself out, okay? Design implementation of customer relationship management, integration with a database. Of course, CRM is an important element. Why? Because it's a place where you saving data about your customers, and this is the place that helps you understand who your customers are, what do they do, okay, and actually what are the things that they buy mostly, and this will help you to get an understanding about what are some of those products that are most successful ones. Design on customer service process and other systems, of course, making sure that there is a complete plan about how you're going to deal with customers. Project planning 3. Design of testing regime and tools. Now, this needs to be identified in your plan as well. You need to know how often you're going to change the design that you created in the first time. Now, clients will always come to you and say, we want this change, then we want this change, then we want things to change again and again. And so you've got to put a deadline to every piece of work, every part of the project possible. Because otherwise you're going to have a customer or a client who's going to ask for so many changes, so many times, you're not going to get anywhere. Okay? So for every project that you do, part of that budget is also the plan. Whereby you say, by this day, we have to agree on the structure of the e-commerce website. By this day, we have to sign off all the key contact pages on e-commerce website. Okay? By this day, we're going to have this and so on. So this way, everybody knows that there is this day, there is this deadline that they all have to meet, and after that, that's all they can do. Right? Integration with stock and ordering system is absolutely really important. So in other words, that is a technology that is put in place to get an idea about what is exactly we need to do to keep up with the availability of the products in stock. Integration with payment and partner, that's also another element that takes time. So it's a technical bit, but of course it's something for us to be thinking about, because again, the time that our developers spend integrating those things costs to us. Taking photos, yeah, it's an important element, and trust me, and according to research, there are so many companies who do an incredible job to build e-commerce site, but then the photos that they have, photographs of their products and products that they sell, are just so poor. And it is so sad, because that's the only opportunity you can tell what is that product that you're trying to buy. That's the only thing that tells you, gives you a feel about the product. You can't touch the product, you can't try it. Now, that only opportunity to visually tell you how good the product is, company leaves out. That one most important thing. So, you get everything right, but the quality of that product and visualizing it is just so poor. And you've seen it, but in the research that we've done recently, of course, it shows that there's so many companies, especially those SME companies online in e-commerce, they actually leave this out. They think that by providing detailed information about the product, a photograph is fine, it'll just do the job, it doesn't matter what quality it is, and it'll just be fine. Because this way we save lots of money by not hiring a professional photographer to actually take the photos. Okay? So they're trying to save some money, but then that's going to impact in the overall business and ultimately conversion rate. Of course, collection and manipulation of the content, that's an important element as well. You've got to make sure that you know who's doing this, who's writing the content, and how much time that is taking for the business. Project planning 4, of course, this is more about marketing now. It's more about making sure that we have a monitoring put in place, and also a bit of plan in terms of what we're going to do for promoting the products, promoting the e-commerce website, and of course design pay-per-click campaigns. Now, this is the time when we need to make sure, of course, if we're going to do this for the client, that needs to be written in there, and it needs to show how many pay-per-click campaigns we're going to design. We're going to design only for one search engine online, or we're going to do for more of them. integration of Google Analytics and monitoring software as also an important element that needs to be there, and it needs to be part of that project plan. Trust me, again, according to research, huge amount of companies that have e-commerce websites don't even have a Google Analytics integrated. They don't actually know where the traffic is coming from, which keywords are showing are the most clicked ones and the most popular ones, who's linking to what. They've got absolutely no idea. They're selling something online, but they don't know what's happening. And when you start to bring these things together, you kind of start to make up an idea about how important that software is, and of course, that job that needs done, it will take time and needs to be part of that project plan. Of course, monitoring SEO and pay-per-click, Google Analytics help us to do just that. It helps us to see how well we do with search engine optimization. That means that how popular those keywords that we're using and those link building and those meta tags that we're using are being rated by Google. Okay, remember we said that Google ranks pages using its own PageRank algorithms. And the way how a PageRank algorithm works is that it actually checks who you're linking to and who are you exchanging links with in the first place. In fact, it works out your popularity based on the links that you're having with other websites. Okay? And then, in addition to that, it looks at the keywords and the analysis of your keywords in comparison with what's happening in the industry. And of course, to support a management of problems and issues, that's going to take some time when you have disagreement with the clients or things that you need to be thinking about. Changing the requirements, following feedback and experience, that also takes time. It's something that just shows, again, that reviewing those things that you've done for the customer require lots of time and things to consider. Now, what are the ways of making things cheaper? Okay, so we looked at several things to think about and to have them in your budget, right? But how can you make things cheaper? Now, one of the first we talked about, of course, is the platforms that require you absolutely no need to write any code, but actually just to design your idea. We talked about Shopify, Magento, and Ticktail to allow you to do things very, very easily. Now, those platforms are actually being used a lot more now. Simply because until now we had entrepreneurs or people with ideas that wanted to invest, but they said, we just don't know the code. How can we build an e-commerce website? But now with these new platforms, as long as you've got some unique ideas that are useful and that you're really passionate about, building it up and launching an e-commerce site is not a difficult thing anymore. So that's one way of doing it cheaper. The other way, of course, is to get the client to do as much work possible for the project as you can. Okay? And that means sometimes getting the client to do lots of writing of the content for your work. Okay? And also trying to get them to tell you as much as possible about what do they like to get done into that e-commerce website, from functionalities and things like that. That's another opportunity to accept share of revenues. In other words, to actually say to the client that you're working with, okay, the fees are going to be slightly lower for you because in return we will take 15-20% of all your sales online. In fact, that could be something that you could do yourselves, okay, whereby you get a really good understanding about Shopify or Magento. You approach one of your local shops that everybody loves their products, and then you go and say, okay, how about if I help you to sell all of these things online and I want 30% of your online sales? You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is give me information about the products, give me good photographs of these products, and I will do the rest. And that's probably a very, very good thing to consider. I think last year, for my e-commerce module, level 6, I had to actually approach their local shops in the places where they live, and actually started to build something. And I had, by the end of the module, I had people really build up some Shopify websites, and they were trying to sell things. But they were always keeping in mind that model of sharing the revenue, because that was brilliant for them. They were learning how to do it. They were sometimes making some money as well, and in addition to that, they were pretty much part of a business online, which was really good. And trust me, large companies do that as well. Why we wouldn't be considering ourselves to do the same thing? Adapt templates from other websites as well. So now this one is being used a lot more because there are more templates offered in Magento and Shopify, or you can even order templates very cheaply online. So in other words, you can set yourself to be quite different from everybody else by using templates. But actually, instead of building everything from scratch, you're either paying for them or you're just downloading some free templates, modifying them a little bit, and then integrating them into your website. The only problem with that is that sometimes using third-party templates, it actually takes a lot more time to edit them. It pretty much takes almost the same amount of time to build new ones than edit the ones that you just downloaded. Okay, and we've seen that all the time with sometimes with templates from Magento, for Shopify as well. And if you played around with Shopify, you probably realize that there are some templates you love it the first time, and you say, oh, it's going to be brilliant for me. You start editing it, and then by the time you brought it live, it has taken you 15, 20 hours, which for that time you could have probably built one from scratch. Okay, so the other one is, of course, using low-cost solutions like Tictail and Magento. We talked about it. Do additional work as the revenue starts to flow. So in other words, as soon as you start to sell things, don't stop there. Always start to see other things that you can do to improve or launch new products or launch sales or discounts or things like that. Consider outsourcing tightly defined parts of the project. Now, outsourcing is really hard thing. It's very challenging. Because sometimes it's hard to try and send across the message of what is exactly you're trying to do. Sometimes you get people to do some work online, but then they do something you're not interested in or you were not looking forward to. Okay? So identifying specific way of communicating with these people that do the work is really hard indeed. Okay? And according to experience, what we've done in the past, we actually identify parts of the project that can be outsourced. Okay? Parts of the project that don't require lots of creative thinking, like designing a database or like just designing a specification plan or whatever it is. Okay? But things that don't require lots of creative thinking, but just direct things and very specific that you need to do. Now, when it comes to outsourcing, there are all sorts of websites you can try. In fact, it'd probably be an interesting idea if you planned, if you played around a little bit with some of them. If you've written something about your Shopify theme that you wanted to get developed, you can post your request in any of these websites and just see how much people are going to ask you to do that piece of work. And again, these are some very popular platforms that companies use all the time to get the job done. That goes from designing templates, designing themes, WordPress themes, all sorts of things, developing websites, developing design for your digital marketing campaigns and things like that. There are guys from around the world who do things very cheaply. Okay? Now, what are some advantages and disadvantages of doing that? Okay? Well, one of the first things is that because you can't see these people, it's quite hard to control them. Okay? So they say, we're going to get back to you with something tomorrow. And then you wait tomorrow, it's 5 o'clock, there's nothing, it's 10 o'clock, there's nothing. You start emailing them, but that's all you can do. Okay? And then you wait the day after that, and the day after that, so you pass 3-4 days after the deadline, there's absolutely nothing. And then they come back to you with something which is quite poor, it's not good at all. Okay? And it's quite hard to then go back and say, well, actually that's not what I asked. And they say, well, that's what it says in your description. Okay? And it's quite hard because things that you can solve face to face, it's a lot easier. But online, everything is hard. Sometimes even if you're having a Skype call, it's quite hard to do that. Speed, of course, is really important. Testing, they do very little or no testing at all. And that makes it really hard. Simply because all they're trying to do is just to get the work done, because they've got all sorts of projects they're dealing with. In other words, you've got no control over the amount of work they do either, because they manage their own business and they're going to try and get as much as possible from those outsourcing websites. And you can't tell. And some of them that I used them in the past, they actually, I think I got a feel that they were doing probably other 20, 30 works from different clients, and therefore I was probably one of the last ones that they were going to do the work for. And again, that wasn't good at all. Of course, support, really hard to find the ones that are going to support you all the time if you had things to change. Because as soon as they get the work done, they'll be like, okay, I'll finish the work, please pay me as soon as possible. You normally pay 20% in the beginning, 40% midway through, and then 40% when the work gets done. So, all they want in their world is for them to get the money and a good review on their platform, on their profiles. As soon as they get that, bye-bye. they will just go. Okay? Now, reliability again is an issue. Speed is also an issue, but of course one of the key things is that if you wanted reasonably okay things, okay quality, and then if you didn't want to invest lots of money, it's probably a good idea. What we've done in the past is that we kind of tested different approaches or different ideas we had with using these services. So we were not interested to launch these things, but what we were doing, we were writing specifications and then sending to these guys just so we can prototype things. So we were not interested to really launch those ideas or those e-commerce solutions or those applications, but we just wanted to see how they would work if we wanted to design ourselves. Now, one of the key things, if you wanted to get more excited about the web development agencies in London, these are some of the income that you could get in London, whether you're a programmer, project manager, design, and of course if you're a creative director, that's where you're going to get most of the money. But trust me, the companies in London look really well after those project managers and creative directors, because in London you've got all of these web development agencies that look after super large websites like Paul Smith, Virgin Brands and so on. So it's quite fun environment to be in. Of course, now Twitter manager, sales, and all sorts of other jobs that you can get if you wanted to go for this industry. Of course, some of the largest agencies in London are here, and most of the websites you're probably using when shopping online are either designed or redesigned or looked after from these companies. Most of the work that I used to do was with the other media company. And there is the last thing I wanted to show you before we finish, or we should finish now anyway. But what are some key takeaways that I want you to consider when you think about the e-commerce side? E-commerce sites, of course, are harder than they look and very difficult. Reputation is everything. So how do you build reputation? You build a reputation by delivering the service, but of course engaging with the customers online, using social media and other platforms. Web services connect different partners together. Of course, landing pages should be the starting point for customer journeys. Google, don't forget, Google makes most of the profit from pay-per-click. Social media drives e-commerce now even more. And what you need to do, you need to learn to prototype and create mashups. So as a young creative manager, okay, you've got to go back and do a lot of research and be able to build things and prototype things together. You need to be able to create and outline budgets. You really got to know how to write things down and create those budgets. You need to understand and develop your analytical skills to identify what's good and bad in an e-commerce website, and be prepared ultimately to make recommendations as a result of your analysis that you've done, as a result of specification and plan that you've done so far. So thank you very much, and I will see you around.